Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kenny Becker, and today we dive into HBO Max. Alright, so for those of you not familiar with this channel, once a week I do a deep dive into one of the popular streaming platforms and come up with 10 horror movies for you guys. And this week I did a deep dive into HBO Max and came up with 10 more horror recommendations that I think you will definitely enjoy. And with that, let's get to the list. Alright, so kicking off this list is The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It.
Hey! You okay there? Jesus. I think I hurt someone.
And to be more specific, it's really the whole entire Conjuring universe. Because all the Conjuring movies, all the spin-offs, Annabelle, you name it, they're all available right now on HBO Max. And as much as I may enjoy some of them and not so much others, it's still really cool to have all of them in one spot where you can just binge them all from beginning to end.
The court accepts the existence of God every time a witness swears to tell the truth. I think it's about time they accept the existence of the devil.
And I did do a full review on The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, and it's available right up here if you guys want to check it out. But to sum it up, I did enjoy it. It was good, but it was definitely not by any means one of my favorites of this universe, and definitely not as good as the first two Conjuring movies. But it was still enjoyable enough that I think it's worth a watch, especially if you have HBO Max. And especially if you include all this Conjuring universe, because that's a pretty fun ride to go down.
Lorraine?
Next is Eight-Legged Freaks.
What did you say?
And this is a movie that has kind of been forgotten in time, but I love this movie. It's a really fun little throwback to the monster creature feature flicks of the 1950s, and this does a really great job of kind of recapturing that kind of vibe in a movie. To me, this movie does a really good job of also recapturing that fun 80s nostalgic vibe too of the creature features like Arachnophobia or Tremors. But it's really just a fun, silly movie, creature feature, over the top, not anything to take serious, definitely not scary, but definitely a lot of fun.
You eight-legged freaks!
All right, now we go to another fun one, and that is Shocker.
Prisoner have any final words?
Yeah. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
So this is one of my favorite 80s horror movies. It is just such a good time. It stars Mitch Pileggi, and besides his role on X-Files, it's the only thing I really know him for. I don't know which character I love more, because I love me X-Files, but I love him in this movie too. It's very weird to see him in this role, because if you grew up watching him as Skinner on X-Files, this is very opposite, a very different kind of character that he plays in this movie. It's a very slimy, fucked up, evil serial killer guy. But this movie is fun, not so much because of that, but because of just how over the top it is. I mean, this guy gets electrocuted and somehow absorbs the power to become electricity and just starts going around killing everybody. But these effects are really cringy and bad in that 80s fun way. It's just a bright, colorful, fun, silly kind of movie that I love so much. And so, of course, anytime I see it on a platform, I'm gonna recommend you guys check it out.
Shocker.
All right, next we go. Stages of hopefully doing a sequel to this movie. And this is a movie that really has always flown under the radar in a lot of ways. I mean, yes, it has its fans and supporters, but it didn't get nearly the love that I personally think it deserved. Hopefully that's how you say his name. played maybe the best character of Lucifer I've ever seen, man, with his tattoos coming up his neck. But no, he's just a fucking badass character playing Lucifer. He just really owns it, and like sci-fi meets horror meets gothic, and like I said, it's underrated in my opinion. So if you've never checked it out, definitely do yourself a favor and check this one out.
Go to hell.
Next, we go to a Wes Craven werewolf movie called Cursed.
Are you okay? Do you hear that? What's going on out there?
So you know me and werewolves. Anytime someone says werewolves, I'm always interested. And as good as this movie is, in my opinion, it could have been better. I've recently heard some different stuff about the writing of this, and that there was a director's cut out there that unfortunately Wes Craven never got to really see come to fruition, and that it got changed dramatically and ended up not being really what he wanted it to be. But even as it is, Cursed is an underrated movie. It is a lot of fun. I mean, I love Wes Craven. Pretty much anything Wes Craven did, I'm interested in watching. But this one is one that I just think had so much potential, and I do still enjoy it, even though it doesn't quite hold up to some of his other movies. I still think it's a blast. It also stars a really great young cast of Christina Ricci, Joshua Jackson, Jesse Eisenberg, Shannon Elizabeth. I mean, it's just a great high school meets horror meets werewolf. It's kind of like Scream meets Teen Wolf, and I'm so there for that. So check it out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I needed to talk to you.
Next up is a great little thriller called Insomnia.
He tortures him, makes him do things, and keeps him there for 3 days. This guy, he crossed the line, and he didn't even blink.
This movie has an absolutely stellar cast. It stars Al Pacino, Robin Williams, Hilary Swank, as well as a great supporting cast. It's just a super solid little thriller, kind of criminal type of situation where Al Pacino is trying to track down Robin Williams, who is believed to be possibly a serial killer, or at the very least a murderer, and Al Pacino is dealing with insomnia.
Another night up like this and you're really gonna lose it.
This is much more of a dramatic type of film than a lot of the ones I put on my list, but it is nonetheless a really solid little movie. This is a great movie for anyone who's a fan of TV shows like Criminal Minds and True Detective type of stuff. And it's just an extremely well done cat and mouse criminal investigation, that type of thriller that I think you will definitely enjoy.
Don't worry, Will. You can sleep when you're dead.
Next, we go to the 1981 classic Scanners.
There are 4 billion people on Earth. 237 are scanners. They'll control your mind, conquer your will, manipulate your body like a toy.
And this is an outstanding sci-fi horror movie that really leans into the whole body horror and a lot of that fun stuff that you see in a lot of the 80s, earlier 80s movies. This is a criminally underrated movie in my opinion, because you just don't hear talked about really that much at all. There is so much here. It is just the most mind-melting, warped type of world that is put on display in this.
I would like to scan all of you in this room, one at a time.
The body horror special effects that are done in this are some of the best you'll see. They're just absolutely skin crawling. This is one of those movies that I love so much that the moment I saw that it was available right now on HBO, I was like, all right, it's time to make an HBO list. And that just shows you how much I adore this movie and how excited I was to recommend it.
Experience the terrifying power of scanners. You pray it will end, and it will. Scanners, their thoughts can kill.
Next up is the film The Crow.
People once believed that when someone dies, a crow carries their soul to the land of the dead. But sometimes, just sometimes, the Crow could bring that soul back to put the wrong things right.
And when I was a teenager, I think I was 17 the year this movie came out, I was obsessed with this movie. I was obsessed with Brandon Lee, and the tragedy of his dying also just gave it even more of an impact. But I remember everything about this, the look, the fashion. It was really my introduction to the macabre and the darker and the gothic and that whole kind of world, because I was just learning about horror and just learning about metal music and all these things, and it just all clicked for me with this movie.
Victims, aren't we all?
I love the look of this movie, the style of it, the heart in this movie. Yeah, it's not quite horror. It's a little more into that thriller action kind of thing, but man, I think most horror fans can at the very least appreciate The Crow because it just has this really gripping look about it. And the soundtrack, seriously, it's still to this day one of my favorite soundtracks. It's just one of those movies to me that if you've never seen it, it's a must watch. And even if you have seen it and it's been a while, it's always great for a rewatch. Either way, enjoy it while it's on HBO Max. All right, next up is Dusk Till Dawn.
One night is all that stands between them and freedom.
This is my kind of place.
But it's going to be one hell of a night.
And I'll never forget going to see this in theaters and how completely opposites this movie is. It starts out as this thriller action kind of movie, and halfway through it just takes this huge left turn and leans heavily, I mean heavily into body horror, vampires, bloody, gory, 70s feeling. Like, it's just beautifully done, and it's definitely one of my favorite Quentin Tarantino movies to this day. It's campy enough, it's cheesy enough that it's a good time.
Be cool. You be cool.
But it also is just a really solid piece of filmmaking. Just the way the two halves intersect and yet feels so dramatically different, but yet it still works. And this movie even has just an amazing cast. I mean, really all I gotta say to horror fans is, hey, it's got Tom Savini.
Welcome to slavery.
No thanks. I already had a wife. From dusk till dawn.
All right, next up, I have a great double feature weekend type of scenario for you. So you start out watching The Shining.
For some people, solitude and isolation can of itself become a problem.
They killed you and Danny.
One of the greatest horror movies ever made, and I think pretty much no one would argue that. It's haunting, it's got an amazing cast, it's beautifully done. I mean, it really has inspired horror movies. You pretty much can see its inspiration fingers or whatever touching everything horror related.
Here's Johnny.
But then, a couple years ago, we got a great sequel that I don't know why, but it still hasn't gotten a ton of credit, and that's Dr. Sleep.
When I was a kid, there was a place. They closed it down and let it rot. But the things that lived there.
Hello, Danny.
This movie stars Ewan McGregor and Rebecca Ferguson. It is written by Stephen King, for God's sake. So that right there is worth the watch. It does what I thought was probably impossible to do, in my opinion, and that's make a sequel to The Shining that could actually hold up, paired up with The Shining. Yeah, maybe you don't agree. I don't know. We all disagree on different things, but to me, it's that quality of a movie, and I absolutely adore it. And if you've never taken the time to watch these two side by side, I'm not going to tell you more about it. Just do it. Like, just get down with HBO Max and The Shining and Dr. Sleep this weekend, and then hit me up on Monday and let me know what you thought. But I think it's about as good of a double feature Friday night, Saturday or whatever, that you could possibly ask for.
And then I will find you, and you will scream for years.
Come and play with us forever and ever.
Alright guys, that's going to do it for me today. Please leave your comments down below because you know I love hearing from you guys, especially your recommendations. And if you could do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel and when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this at least 2 times every week. And I also want to give a huge, massive, giant thank you to my patrons, because you guys are so amazing and mean so much to me. And if you would like to find out more about becoming a patron, the link is down in the description. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember guys, horror can be fun. I will see you guys next time.